Welcome to WhoDooTV. We are live for a special event. We have some friends that started a Kickstarter not too long ago, and they are on issue number 3 already. It is White Ash number 3, and let's get some introductions done. My name is Hoosier, and my co-host today is my friend from Get Valiant, Josh. Go ahead and say, give us a wave or say hi.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me back. Always a pleasure.
And then we have the writer of White Ash, Charlie Stickney. Welcome aboard.
How's it going, everyone? Hope you're having a great evening so far.
Awesome. And then we have the artist, the penciler behind this beautiful work, Conor Hughes. Thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, everybody. Good to be here.
Awesome. So you guys maybe, some people who have viewed us before, we talked with Charlie and Conor when number 2 was released. We got to read number 1, take a look at number 2, and just recently number 3 hit Kickstarter and has been doing pretty well. Number 1 and number 2 were some big hits, all funded, all hit stretch goals. Guys, congratulations on the success that White Ash has been having so far.
Well, thank you very much. I think when you bring a book to Kickstarter, you never know what kind of response that you're going to get, especially when you bring one issue. But if you're lucky enough to fund the first issue, and then you're able to bring a second issue and people like it, you hope that it's something that you can keep doing because you have people that are enjoying your book. And we've been really fortunate that we've found a fan base that seems to like what we're doing. And as we've gone on, we've found more and more people who seem to appreciate what I'm writing, and they definitely like what they see when Conor and Finn get together and draw these beautiful pages.
Yeah, I think Josh was just talking offline. How did we connect? How did WhoDooTV and the White Ash team connect? And I, like you said, getting off the pages of seeing Conor's art, and that's where it kind of came up with Twitch, is running across Conor's art. And the pages of 3 look amazing, obviously 1 and 2. So, man, good job. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. Well, I mean, we're already started on issue 4 right now, and I think issue 4, I'm really happy with how it's coming out so far. And yeah, I think people will be really pleased once they've got through issue 3, which hopefully will be pretty quick. We'll be starting on issue 4 pretty soon. So keep an eye out for that.
That is great. Like, I'm looking at Kickstarter right now, and 553 backers with almost $19,000. Freaking amazing. And to show everybody else, there's 7 days left to go on this event for chapter 3, and just phenomenal. And I would like to get some of these people who may not have heard of this book yet, give them a little rundown on who they are to expect with some of these characters. First off, your main character, Alec. Charlie, would you tell us a little bit about Alec?
Well, I think just a quick overview of the book. I like to say that it's Lord of the Rings meets Romeo and Juliet in rural Pennsylvania. So you have a little bit of a fantasy, forbidden romance with some undercurrents of horror happening in this small coal mining town. And Alec, he's our everyman, and he's our in point into the story. And he's a guy who's grown up in this small town in the middle of nowhere. And like a lot of us from small towns, he can't wait to get out of that town. And thankfully, he's gotten old enough, and he's just going to go off to college and say goodbye. And he comes from a family of coal miners, and he just can't wait to say, adios to that legacy. But unfortunately for Alec, on the day he's about to get in his car and go off to Carnegie Mellon, there's an accident at the coal mine, which keeps him in town for a couple more days. And that's really when White Ash, the comic, kicks off. And it sets him on a whole new path where he starts uncovering some things about the town and his legacy. And he realizes, nothing about who he thought he was and what he thought the town was is what it seems. And that's where the book really starts taking off.
And he learns a little bit of something about who he is as a character. And I just want to call out, if you know what the book and if you read the book, Conor, great job depicting that in your images, because you get an idea of that and it makes you scratch your head, but it doesn't just give it away either. How is
it was a tough balance, and I think, I think we hit it at least for the first issue, and then, now I can play with it now that things are more expressed, and now I can more easily delve into that subject matter.
That's awesome. And then we also have, what's the love interest without the other party, right? Lily and Alden.
That's right. I mean, for Alec, being in town for a couple of more days, she's one of the people that he runs into, and she happens to be the daughter of the man who owns the coal mine. And for a lot of reasons, their two families don't want them to get together. He thinks it's because of the class divide between the two, but it obviously has nothing to do with that. And as we say in this town, the smaller the town, the bigger the secrets. But we're going to quickly discover in White Ash that nothing is what it seems. And if you look at the Kickstarter page, we have a lot of spoilers on there. We try to keep it spoiler free, but there are a lot of reveals that happen at the end of the first issue and in the second issue. And so I don't want to get too much into it, because part of the joy of the series is seeing how those secrets play out. And we have a lot sort of stacked over the first couple of issues. But if you look carefully, you can sort of get some hints and see where maybe we're going with some of it, especially when we talk about the mythology and the influences on it. You can piece it together for yourself when we say Lord of the Rings and Romeo and Juliet. But like I said, you'll really enjoy letting some of those secrets play out for you when you watch them unfold.
Awesome. And you mentioned Thane, which is, you mentioned him. And then one guy that has really got me curious on who he is more, and this is kind of more about reader services here for the fan service. Thane. Thane. Seth. Seth was one of the very first characters that we met in White Ash in the book. Are we gonna see more of him? What's up with Seth?
Oh, we're definitely going to see a lot of Seth, especially going forward with the series. I was actually just talking with Conor today about how when you're establishing a villain that you feel really good about, and how I think between the two of us, we've been able to create someone in the span of a couple of issues that I think people identify with and like. I know on the Twitch stream, whenever Conor's drawing him, people get really excited. Even though he's only had a small presence in White Ash, he's made a big impact. You're going to see a lot of him, especially in Chapter 4. He gets to have a lot of fun. And unfortunately, what's a lot of fun for Seth is not a lot of fun for the other characters. But yeah, he has a big role to play in the series going forward. Do you want to talk about drawing Seth at all, Conor?
Well, I mean, what's there to say? In the sense that Seth is a lot of fun right now, especially with what the pages I'm working on the stream. In that we're seeing more of him, and that he also adapts to the situation that he's sort of in. I guess I try and adapt what Seth is to that situation, and then because he's he's a figure that can change in the story, because you don't really know what he's going to do all the time. So that makes it more interesting. That makes it more interesting to draw.
There's a joy to Seth's chaos. I mean, I think that's the thing. He is the chaos in White Ash, in some ways, and he takes pleasure in that, in bringing it. But for him, it's yeah. So I think like he is both the embodiment of pure pleasure and pure chaos rolled up into one, that comes to town and causing trouble for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I think what he is also is the secret of the town, of the story that is coming forward, and blossoming into the story. And so everything else is more or less meant to be pretty neat and tidy and together and orderly. And then there's this character that completely undoes that. So I guess that's also like a source of like big drama in the story, and to draw, because it's a very different subject matter from the rest of it.
I've really enjoyed the way he's been depicted so far, and all elements of the story. I mean, he's very three-dimensional so far, and like you just get, even though we haven't had a lot of him, I feel like there's a lot of story to be said with him, and I think I've enjoyed the way you've done that, Charlie, kind of like giving you little bits of him, which is great. And then just the way he's been drawn is great. And then this image in general was from issue number 1. And I got to give it up to the man who's not here, is Finn Cram. I do love his colors. I think he's been doing a great job on your guys' color work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think he really.
Go ahead, Conor.
Yeah, sure. I think, just to interject, I think he really pulls it together, especially with. I really like how the colors came out for issue 3. I think there's a lot of different things that he was doing with the color there, and I think there's a sort of a range in the way that the color is being played out depending on the scene that is also new, because there's a lot more different kinds of drama going on in issue 3, and so I think he gets very expressive with those situations.
I think one of the things I'm really fortunate to work with both Conor and Finn is they're both incredibly thoughtful about their work. And we've done these deluxe PDFs for both chapter 1 and chapter 2. And in it, when they break down their process, I am just struck by how much thought and time they've put into considering why a scene should be drawn a particular way, or it should be colored a particular way to evoke a certain emotion or pacing. There are some artists who are like, okay, I'm going to draw it, and they can draw it and they can make it look good. And with Conor and Finn, they can do that, but it's deliberate. It's not just because they have the skill set. It's the skill set combined with deliberate purpose. And I think that's why it comes through that there is something. I've tried to deliberately plot a bunch of beats, and I think working with artists who also deliberately consider how they're handling the storytelling, both emotionally and the pacing of the art, has just been a really nice combination of the three of us working together.
And I'll also just say there that I think Charlie makes it pretty easy to do that. The way the scenes are often paced, I think the way he structures the descriptions for the panels, I think that is the beat that I play off of, and then that becomes the beat that Finn plays off of. So it's a chain, and the chain works together. And it's only when the chain works together in that way that you really, that you can make, I guess, what we've all made together.
That's awesome. Speaking of that, was this page here. This is one of the images you guys have up on Kickstarter, and just this layout of paneling, not to mention the pencils and everything. How did the two of you come up with this? What was the layouts? Because they just keep getting better and better. Each issue, each page seems to just be improving so much. And your work's just getting better and better every time, Conor. I love it. But how did you guys come together with just a page? How do you guys work with that?
Well, I will say from the script standpoint, at this point, because Conor is so good, I'm trusting him more and more, so I'm throwing more and more at him. So I'm giving him more and more challenging things to work with. So I'll give him a description like, hey, there's 100 bodies in this scene. If you can draw 50 of them and squeeze them in, that would be great. And we also see this, and we also see that. That would be great. Here's a really complicated expression. Good luck with it. I know you can do it. And this will all be in, the liner notes of the script that he's getting. So it really comes down to, I think, when you're working with an artist that you trust, I'm in the script trying to push him to do more. And then every time I do that, he just kind of exceeds what I was hoping to get from that beat.
Oh, I don't know, Charlie. I think you take it really easy on me. You just say, just go for the most basic, simple thing. That'll work. The story will do itself. You go from there. But yeah, I mean that first page, that opening page was a lot of fun to do, and you know, I think one of the thought processes was with that page is because we're going back in time. I don't know. I just had, when I first imagined this scene, and then I also know another scene that is roughly around the same time, that because I know, you know, I have the backstory a little bit for what. So I always imagined a certain setting, a certain lighting, a certain mood to that whole time period, and so I knew very strongly what I wanted to set that scene in. So that's why I wanted to set the camera outside the house, peering in, because that way you're seeing, because that's you're sort of seeing things through the lens of time, and then the windows by proxy become that lens of time. You're sort of seeing through the space, and then also they become panels in a certain sense as you're unfolding the carnage that's occurring on that page, until you finally get to, you know, Thane there on the right, realizing sort of, because he's also walking through that space. That was the thought process. He's walking in through the front door, which is sort of in the second panel, I suppose, and he's seeing through the walking through the space and seeing all the bodies, and he's unveiling that story himself as he's walking home. And so that was the idea of that sort of page.
I think one of the fun parts about this, and this is for all the viewers and anybody out there, is to get connected and watch these guys work, watch Conor and Charlie work together. Because I think I remember seeing Conor working on this image of the bodies lying around, and hearing about, you know, Charlie just saying, hey, add more bodies, put more in there, and just the challenges that are there, and seeing it come to life is just really cool. The way you guys are interacting with everyone on that and allowing it to be seen and be made like that is just a really cool process in general. So I encourage everybody to check out Conor's Twitch and that, you know, a plug for that. But and then you mentioned the expressions on the face, just the expression there on the top image that you guys are using as your image for for the book is just gorgeous. So yeah, and then you guys recently got to go to a small event to kind of show off this book and the first two, and we had a variant cover there of San Diego Comic-Con. I want to hear a little bit about your guys' adventure there.
Well, this was actually the many firsts for us. It was the first time that Conor and I had met in person. We had mostly communicated over the internet, so it was the first time we were going to meet in the same physical space, and it was the first time either of us had actually done a convention. So we figured we would start small. We would meet each other at some local convention, and see if we liked each other, and if so, we would see if we could sell a couple of copies of the book. But we were really lucky. At San Diego Comic-Con, for it being the world's largest comic book convention, still devotes a good section to small press and tries to make sure that there's a section devoted to comics. That section is still swallowed up by the video games and Hollywood, but there's a very still a thriving section devoted to comics, and you have to get juried to be accepted. And so we sent them the first issue of White Ash, and thankfully Conor and Finn's artwork is strong enough that they the writing was not too bad, and they were willing to to have us there. And so we said yes, please, and we paid our table fee, and we paid the exorbitant hotel costs, and Conor flew all the way across the country to be there, and it was just, I don't think we could have had a better experience. We had such a good time there, both from a selling perspective. We had people from KickStarter who had come to San Diego, in the midst of all that, who came to find us, which we were just blown away by, and we're so thankful. If anyone from KickStarter who came to our booth is watching, thank you. It meant so much to Conor and I to see people from, who came to San Diego. I know you probably came to do other things too, but the fact that you stopped by our booth meant so much to us. And then we had so many people who stopped by, who bought the book, who bought the first chapter, and then who came back on a later day in the campaign to buy books 2 or 3, or who emailed me after San Diego to say, hey, I wish I had gotten more books. We're going to back your Kickstarter now. It's such, it's such an overwhelming space, but I couldn't be happier that we were there. And I think it was just a great boost for the book in terms of visibility, and definitely for Conor as an artist. And I can't tell you how many writers were coming by our booth looking at Conor and saying, hey, who are you? I would like to take your card. And Conor, how did you like being in San Diego? Because I know this was also your first trip to California.
Yeah, it's the first time I've ever been further west than Texas. And of the time that I was only in Texas, it was only for a very small period. So yeah, it was really great. We were only in a small space of San Diego. So that was, it was just amazing. The infrastructure there, it's all set up right for the con. You get off the plane, you go to the hotel. Hotel's right by the airport, and then from the hotel to San Diego, it's all hooked up by. There's different tram lines, different bus routes that you can take. So that was really great. And then just being able to see people's reactions to your artwork for the first time en masse. Obviously I've seen other people look at my artwork, but when you see people walk by it among all the thousands and billions of other things that you can see at San Diego, which is in plethora. That they stop and look at your work is pretty gratifying. It's pretty great.
Yeah, so I don't think that we could have had a better reaction to both the way people were reacting to the book from a sales perspective, but also from, I think if you're an independent creator, there's a couple of reasons to be at San Diego. One is to promote your book from, to try to sell copies. But the other reason is to try to meet film and television network people, because they're all there in San Diego. And there were plenty of people who stopped by our booth, who bought copies, who handed us business cards. And you don't know if anything. It was just really nice to see that people seemed interested. So that's really nice too. And then publishers come by and they say, oh, this looks interesting too. And so, you're just more visible there than you would be anywhere else. And so I think for us, it was, hey, we're on the map. It was that moment for us. And I feel like it was worth every dollar we spent to be there. And everything that, the experience alone, can't be counted in, what books we sold, because, it was just so great to meet so many people and be able to share White Ash with them, be it fans or be it people who were involved in the comic book industry, and that camaraderie that, you get to be a part of, and you get to meet other creators and the other small press people. And it really is a community and a family that for the first time, you're not on Twitter getting to know people. You're actually, getting to look through their books and say hello and having them look at your books. And I really love being part of that world. So.
That's awesome.
So,
go for it, Josh.
Okay, I was trying to find my spot to get in. So like with right now, you're doing the Kickstarter for your 3rd chapter of this. And Conor was saying right now that he's doing art for the 4th chapter. How far do you see this book going?
Well, that's, there's 2 answers to that. It comes down to specifically how long people are interested in how long Conor and I are having fun doing it together, and Finn's having fun doing it. The first story arc concludes after chapter 4. And chapter 4 is 40 pages. So at that point, we'll have had somewhere in the neighborhood of, close to 150 pages worth of comic, which is a pretty considerable story. I have story mapped out for somewhere in the neighborhood of about 80 episodes or 80 issues. So if people continue to like the book, if we continue to enjoy making it, we could be making White Ash for years to come. There's a lot of story there. There's a lot of back history. And so, you know, it's just something that we could make for a long time. If we're enjoying making it, and if people want to keep reading it, we do have a very epic story to tell.
Yeah, and that actually brings up another question that I had too, because you mentioned that the first part of this ends with chapter 4.
Yes.
And so do you see like going the route of doing a Kickstarter for any kind of like collected edition? Do you look at maybe going with a publisher for something like that to try to expand out of like Kickstarter, maybe into like bookstores and comic shops, things like that?
Well, again, it's going to come down to what makes sense economically. You know, I can't talk about it too much, but we've had some discussions with some publishers at this point. So again, if it makes sense, we may go the publisher route. If it makes more sense for us to do it on our own, you know, that's something Conor and Finn and I have to sort of just figure out the best way forward, so we can keep making the book at the kind of quality that we want to make it at, for both ourselves and for the fans. But you know, we would eventually like to be in stores and be available for as many people as possible. So, you know, like all these things are definitely in play. I think you will see White Ash in comic book shops at some point, in either a trade or in a single issue format. Whether that's us expanding what we're doing down the road, or whether it's us partnering up with a publisher. Both of those things could or will happen. It's just, again, what makes sense financially, and, you know, in terms of the rights and everything else. But yeah, I mean, like it's all, we just have to figure all of that out. But yes.
That's awesome. I know Conor probably gets annoyed with me every time I'm like, when's the hardcover coming? When's the hardcover coming? On Twitch. So I'm hoping with this 4 that might be one of the great options when number 4 launches.
Well, look, if we're completely on our own, if we haven't partnered up with anybody, I will say that if it's just left to Conor and I, there will probably be a hardcover sometime near the middle towards the end of February of 2019.
That's awesome.
And that hardcover would be probably close to 200 pages.
That's great.
So, yeah. So we also have a bunch of other artists lined up that would do some pinups, in addition to some behind-the-scenes content and things like that. And we probably would have a backup story. So it would be a substantial trade beyond just a collection of the first 4 issues, because we don't like to do anything small in White Ash.
So, number 3 still's got 7 more days. What can we expect in number 3? What are people going to be looking for in issue number 3?
Well, I think
not spoilerly give out.
there's more. I think the theme of the campaign is the funeral, and as you can see from the cover, there's a funeral. So I will say there's a funeral, without giving too much away, that happens in the comic. I think that, as we alluded to in the beginning of this podcast, there is a flashback, right? Because Conor was talking about it taking place in the past, because we do want to start fleshing out the history of the town. I may have said this on the first time we got together, but we have a timeline that dates back about 1,000 years. So, you know, there's a big story to be told. So we're going to start telling that story into the past as well. And so, you know, as we go forward into the future, we also want to go backwards in time to start telling these pieces of key history. And this is the first little flash of something that's important that we're showing from the past. So that's also playing out there. We're introducing a new character that's in this little opening sequence that may or may not have some real importance later on down the line. And I think what you'll also see in this 3rd issue is some even better art than you saw in the first 2 issues, because I think Conor and Finn have really gotten better every single issue. I mean, it's the book just continues to ramp up. I mean, and while these are just stills, I mean, the one below is actually, I think that the dragon's actually from chapter 2. There's a spread that I wish we could show you that's from that funeral we were talking about. That is just mind blowing that Conor and Finn did. They have just upped their game, and the stuff that I'm now writing for that I've written for chapter 4 is just inspired by how good they've gotten in this book. So I'm really looking forward to Conor and Finn going through their paces for the next chapter. So good luck with that, Conor.
Right in the trenches. I mean, that's what's great about Twitch. Is that you get to be there through the experience as well.
But like if without even spoiling anything, chapter 4 opens like there's an entire page that's basically told with hand gestures that I already made Conor draw, and he knocked it out of the park. And it's really an interesting page. But like I knew after seeing all these other pages, like, we can open like this and he can make it interesting. And not only did he make it interesting, he made it even more interesting than I thought, when I was envisioning it. So I mean, it's like that's the kind of dynamic that we have now. It's like, and you heard when he was breaking down, like that was the thought I was talking about when he was breaking down his thought process behind, like where he put the camera on that opening sequence and what it meant to him. Like that's the kind of thought that Conor puts into every single page. And Finn does the same thing with his, his color palettes in terms of the emotional tone. And so, it's just great working with people who put that much thought into the book.
And I'll just interject again. You got to lay up the pins for them to be knocked down, right? Like the substance has to be there for an artist to have an opportunity to work on a story of that quality.
You can tell we hate working with each other at this point.
Hate it. And you guys even got to be at San Diego Comic-Con together for a good week, and you still like each other. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that experience might break some people. I mean, it was, there was some, my pants ripped open the first days when we were setting up the booth, because you can't, I just happened to not wear a belt that day, and normally I don't, but I guess I should have this time, because we had to bring in all the materials by hand. We were parked quite a ways away, so when I had to stoop down to scan your pass at 2 times at every single time you go in and out, and so in the process of doing that, I happened to bend a little bit too low for these pants, and then boom, they rip right open. So anyway, yeah. So I mean, it wasn't without some challenges, but we had a great time doing it anyway. It didn't really matter.
It was a good how do you do good to get to know you moment. And our wives were there for just a little bit, and Conor survived my children, who were there for a few minutes as well. So like through all of that, with our families interacting, it was really nice. So it's good to find collaborators. It's even better to find collaborators who are good people. And I feel like we've done that. Both, I'm really fortunate to find someone who's not only artistically talented, who's thoughtful, but also who's a good person. So, 3 for 3. What can I say?
Makes it a little easier for you guys. So.
It does.
What I mean, is there other things besides White Ash that you guys are going to be working on?
Well, I mean, we have talked about doing some other projects together. Conor, I think, is going to be in demand very shortly, especially after San Diego. So, we'll have to see how all of that maps out. Because like I said, we have so much White Ash to actually do. But we definitely have another project in mind that we might try to run parallel to White Ash if we can put the production together, which would be more in the sci-fi realm, grounded sci-fi to sort of match our grounded fantasy. And it would be a really fun project to work on that I would love to do with Conor.
Yeah, I can tell you guys what we've talked about in that regard it looks really good. I'm really excited to get a chance at it if we can manage to pull it off. So yeah, keep an eye out for it.
So at a stage like this where you guys both like working with each other, and Charlie has said that there's so many chapters of White Ash that he'd like to do. Do you guys come into this kind of project with a certain amount of issues that you want to try to get done or released in the year?
Well, I think it comes down to both, scheduling that makes sense for, our individual lives. I mean, that's one of the benefits when you're working small scale like this. If we were working at a publisher, we'd have to be working on their release schedules. So right now, Conor and I are able to have a conversation and say, hey, what's going on in your life? What's going on in my life? And when there's the best times for us to release Kickstarters. Because for us, we're not using Kickstarters as a way of raising money as much as we're using it as pre-sales. Some people come to Kickstarter and say, here are 5 pages of our comic book, and in a year and a half, we'll have it done if you give us the money. We're coming to Kickstarter with, hey, the comic book's done. We're going to send it to the printer. Who wants to place an order to get this exclusive comic? So it's a slightly different model. We're basically replacing Diamond with Kickstarter, which works for us. And there are other creators that are doing that too. So it's a slightly different model of distribution on Kickstarter. So I think that's kind of what we're working at right now. And I know roughly what Conor's comfortable page rate is. And I don't want to push that because I know the quality that we can get with that. So as long as it makes sense fiscally for him, and as long as it makes sense, in terms of when we can structure the Kickstarters, we're kind of working around what makes sense for everybody in that regard. Conor, is that kind of working for you? I mean, is that?
Yeah, I think that's a good synopsis. I mean, we especially because upcoming, we might have things that might be going on in a personalized that take up a little bit more time, and not really sure what they might be. So, or how much time that'll take up. So that's also something we have to plan around as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, at least for my part, I'm definitely excited to get issue 4 out and keep on working on White Ash, and maybe who knows, but we'll see what else we might be able to cook up.
So, now that you've done like 3 of these issues, and like you just said, you're using Kickstarter just to like not as a pre-order system, basically. The book's going to come out regardless. What are you doing to actually promote the book other than just using that Kickstarter? Like, you have to, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, you have to spend most of your time on like social media just trying to promote your own work, or do you have a little bit of a following where like people are starting to hear about it through other means?
Well, yeah, I think there's been a huge difference in terms of how we've promoted it and how we've had to build the Kickstarters from 1 to 2 to 3. And for us, I would say this is the Kickstarter that we've done the least amount of like day after day hitting it hard promoting, and it's been our most successful Kickstarter. And that's because at this point we've built up enough people who are fans of the book. So, because Kickstarter is, it's based on an algorithm. So if you have people that come on day 1 and day 2, they promote you internally because they know you're going to hit your goal. So Kickstarter knows that you're making money for them because they don't make money unless, you hit your funding goal. So it's like a cyclical thing where if you're making money, they know they'll make money. So they promote you, so you'll make more money. And so, like they help the people who are doing well. So if you're a project that's built to do well, you're built to do even better. So with this one, we alerted our backers, and it hadn't been so long since the last book, and book 2 ended on kind of a cliffhanger. So a lot of people, like, we had such a big day 1 and day 2, which were people who had read the second book that just came. It pushed us into a different bracket on Kickstarter. And I think that's really why we've done so well. And I just found this out. I mean, somebody reached out to me on Kickstarter asking me a question, and they had been, we had been recommended to them by their local comic book shop. And their local comic book shop has a, list of recommendations. And it was like, hey, you can get this comic this week, but also online on Kickstarter, this book looks great. So, like when a random comic book shop in Seattle is recommending you you know, to their customers, you know, somehow you've made an imprint. And like, I mean, I don't know how we got on that radar, but we, you know, whether it's San Diego, was it you?
I don't know. I talk about you guys in my store.
But like, I appreciate like whatever it was. What's your store? Are you comfortable?
Couple of them. Comics Dungeons one I frequent quite often.
Yeah, maybe it was Comics Dungeon. Maybe it was like, but thank you. Like if that was the one. So like I think it was yeah, Comics. I think it was Comics Dungeon. But like thank you. I think they put us on the list. So thank you very much. But like I feel like it's the word of mouth through people who like the book, you know, that's starting to come back to us. And so we have like, and there's like I see people on Instagram who I don't know promoting the book for us. You know, it's so rather than, you know, for the first book, it was only people I knew on Facebook who was like, hey, you know, you should check this book out. It's people who I've met on, you know, met on Twitch, met on, you know, but then it's also people who I haven't met who had read the first two books who just want there to be more books of White Ash. And so like now that we've reached that zone, I think if we keep making a good comic that people like and we keep delivering it on time, then we've got our, you know, then the promotion is built in. So, you know, like that's what we're trying to do is keep making the book even better, keep getting it to people on time and delivering, you know, something that people like. And I think that's the best promotion after you do one or two Kickstarters.
All right.
Right. There's a momentum, I think, that carries over. And if you maintain doing things that people like, then that momentum will continue. And if you make something that people don't like, that momentum's going to die out. So you got to make sure that, you know, we got to make sure that we're still delivering on the quality every single time, which is what we try and do. You know, we try and make sure that not only the quality maintains, but gets better. I think. And I think that's what's going to happen once the whole story layers over time. You know, as Charlie builds it up, and then I think also the artwork is going to keep on doing new things. You know, I mean, also Charlie does a lot of effort on spending a lot of effort on getting reviews, and that's been very useful. I think also getting in, you know, I think having you mentioned being on social media every day, and well, I mean, I'm on Twitch.
Yeah, Twitch. Yeah.
Day. So that's I think that daily fix. You know, Charlie talks before about how web comics, which you know have been very successful on Kickstarter, how they did well because they offered that daily fix to people, and then eventually after, you know, a long time, they started hitting Kickstarter up for, say, a large volume. So in a similar way, we're giving that, offering that daily fix, so people don't feel like they're waiting forever for their books. They know roughly where it is in the pipeline, and they get, if they want to check it out, they can come by, they can check it out, see where they are. I mean, if they're being drawn in, they can come by and see if they're being drawn in, or, you know, whatever, anything like that. And so I think that also helps as an interim amount of social media in between the campaigns.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely what I personally have seen. You know, even getting into White Ash and liking the story, and then being able to get my alert that says Connor's doing some art right now, kind of see, oh, look at this panel that's coming. I think I saw you doing the library image. When you guys see that in issue number 3, oh my gosh, it's a beautiful page. Beautiful. And there's the time and effort that to see Conor do it was pretty cool. And that's why I say it's something that does really well, that markets, but also is the way, Charlie, the way you're writing these stories and leaving, like, almost like I want to say you're a jerk, because you just leave us like, give me more right now. Like, I need to have it. And so it leaves people like ready to get that next one when it's coming out. So, and I think from what I have seen from the first 2 and what I glanced over on 3, like, it's the same stuff. It's that, you know, you leave people ready to read more. You could tell that you have some experience writing episodic stories.
Well, I mean, and I think that's what you want to do when you're writing a good story for a sequential medium, is you want to make, when someone's reading the story, you want to feel like that was a good read. But when the issue ends, you want to feel like you need to read the next one, right? You know, so like there needs to be some kind of hook that brings you to the next issue, and it needs to either, but the issue needs to be structured in a way that it doesn't just feel tacked on, right? It just needs it needs to feel like it was building to that. And so for me, I mean, it's again, it comes from looking at something like a television show where where you have commercial breaks, right? And everything is built to be a self-contained story leading up to that commercial break, but the commercial break is a hook that's going to get you to stay until the commercial is over, and then you watch the next piece. So I think that's where comics and television really have a lot in common. There's a lot of places where they differ in terms of the way that you would write one script, and another script. But I think that is if you're going from one medium to another, that specific skill is something that if you understand, is something that you should sort of latch onto and say, this is something that I should build off of when I'm structuring my stories.
And I'll add on to that's one of the great opportunities that Kickstarter offers, is the fact that Charlie gets to write the story, with the number of pages that he wants. And so, the first issue is 52 pages, and the second and third issues are 32 pages. So they're a little bit longer, and then that gives Charlie the amount of space to pace out so that build that he mentioned earlier actually feels like it builds up to that moment. And again, it's not unearned. It's not an unearned cliffhanger. It's not something that just feels tacked on, as you said. It's something that makes sense in the context of the story.
Yeah, with each issue still getting a payoff still with that. So you do still get a payoff of what you've read, not just a lingering cliffhanger.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing is when you do a flashback in a comic, sometimes you'll give it 2 pages because you only have 22 to play with. But for us, I'm like, hey, let's do 5 or 6 pages and really explore that world, because this is the first time we're going there. Because really, at the end of the day, it just comes down to the amount of time that that it's going to take Conor to draw it, and the amount of money that we have to spend to print it. And so if we can allocate that time to do it, then it's worth it, because it'll make the story better.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I like I said, again, we only review books, and we only get people on here of ones we enjoy. And you guys are on here because I've enjoyed it, because Jared enjoyed it. Yeah. And I want to kind of go back. Josh, did you have anything more to add today?
No, everything that I would have asked has been answered in one way or another.
Awesome. And anything more on you guys? Anything more you needed to add, Conor?
Offhand, no. Just I'd say, if you guys have more questions, if anyone has more questions, they can come by the Twitch channel. They can come right here to WhoDooTV, and you guys can ask questions in the live feed. But otherwise, yeah, we're around, and join us on Twitch, and you can get all the information you want there.
Awesome.
Yeah, Conor's really good at helping people with art. I mean, you've been on the stream before. If people have art questions, he always takes the time to sort of help people, talk them through. Hey, just today he was giving some tutorials on how to draw hair, which is a hard thing for some people to do. And I'm always happy to give some writing pointers, or even talk Kickstarter with people, because a lot of people are thinking about doing Kickstarters for comics or things like that now. And if you want to talk Kickstarter, please come by. I'm happy to just give you some of the basics that we have used to get to where we are now. I mean, I'm no expert, but we've done 3 and we're doing pretty well with it so far.
And I was about to ask when we're going to see number 4 out on. When do you think that might hit Kickstarter?
Well, I think we would like to deliver Chapter 3 first, so it depends on when Chapter 3 gets back from the printer. But if we can work some things, hopefully we can have Chapter 4 out late October, early November.
Oh man, that is awesome. That is awesome. But there still is, again, 7 days to get Chapter 3, get your digital catch-ups. I think you can get all the prints still caught up on this. Do you want to tell anybody about what they can get right now if they go to Kickstarter and get on the book? They support and back this Kickstarter.
Sure. I mean, you can get issue 1, issue 2, issue 3. You can get a special variant that we did just for San Diego. We only printed up 75 of these. It's this amazing cosplay variant. I think you showed that earlier, where it's just set outside of San Diego Comic-Con, featuring the White Ash characters and kind of a riff on The Wizard of Oz. And we also have another cover, another variant cover. And then we have a print catch-up tier where you can get the first 3 issues. And then, you know, with this campaign, there's yes, this is not quite finished version of this cover. The artist, she is currently doing a series for Aspen Entertainment. And so her series is coming out next month. So she was on deadline, but she should have the finished cover for this soon. So this is just her rough sketch.
That is a gorgeous looking sketch.
It's a little bit sexier than what we normally have in White Ash, but I was not going to tell her, you know, to modify what she wanted to draw. You know, I mean, I think if a woman can choose to draw as sexy or not as sexy as she wants to draw. So that was her choice. That was not our direction. I think it's a beautiful cover. I think it's going to be a beautiful cover. So, you know, I think, you know, so we have a lot of really, I mean, it's just worth checking. We're also doing a funeral invite. One of the things we like to do with White Ash is recreate physical representations of things that happen in our comic book and give them to our backers as exclusives. Like from our second campaign, we gave people coasters from our diner. You could get coasters from SIFs. For our very first campaign, you could actually get coal from the White Ash mine, along with a stock certificate showing, a certificate of authenticity or stock in the White Ash mine. So, and we also have a bunch of postcards from the town. So we're just trying to bring pieces of White Ash home to you. And so for us, we're just trying to make White Ash as much of a real place as possible.
Awesome.
Anything else you want to add? Oh, and actually you can get some original art from Conor as well. Conor will do some sketches for you. So if you like Conor's art and you would like a piece of original artwork, I believe there are still a few tiers left where you can get Conor to actually do an original sketch for you. So that's that would be my choice of tiers, because I just think his art's dynamite. That's
awesome. Again, I want to thank you guys for jumping on. Thank you for producing some awesome work that we get to read and review and look at. It's great. So again, I want to thank you guys for jumping on. Thank everybody for watching us as well. And make sure you are getting on Twitch. Make sure you're following these guys on Twitter and backing them. There is comments or links down below. Make sure you pull those up and connect with these guys. And again, Conor, thanks for jumping on. Charlie, Josh, all of you guys, thanks for jumping on.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks.
All right. Well, and viewers, thank you for jumping on. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you're hitting the like. Make sure you're hitting some thumbs up.